Then I went and recruited a team of guys when I'm 20 years old. And then the next year went to Houston, Texas for 5 months and made 250 grand as a 20-year-old.
What was it for you that you weren't skipping and that you were making sure to do?
This is true for every single person I've trained, is that you do not have a sales problem. You have a mindset problem, self-limiting belief problem, a personal issue that's blocking or distracting you, your focus, from performance. I've worked with multiple $1 million a year earners, and the number one trait of a peak performer is mindset over skill set. I take mindset over skill set all day.
What are you trying to accomplish? What's next? Doug, welcome to the pod, man. We met less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're doing some stuff with one of my former roommates, and we got to talking. He and you both mentioned that you're a baller sales trainer who's done a bunch of awesome things, and we had about a 3-sentence conversation, and I was like, why don't we have an actual conversation? So here we are. Thanks for
happy to be here, man.
So for the audience, I know you have your own podcast, and I'm not even sure much of what you do. So let's give a quick TLDR origin story, who you are, and then we can dive into what you're up to now and where you're going.
Yeah. So I wasn't ever planning on getting into sales. I was at the University of Utah, was going to school for finance, ended up getting my finance degree. Yeah.
Same.
Shout out Utes. And in Utah, it's really prominent to do door-to-door sales. Like it's just
missionary
stuff. Yeah. So I went on a mission, right?
Oh, really?
I grew up Mormon,
Cool.
and did the mission thing in my early 20s, late teens. And door-to-door is just really prevalent. It's just everyone kind of knows about it. A lot of the major door-to-door companies are based out of Utah. And
pest control,
alarms, solar now is really popular. And I'd always kind of heard of it, didn't really know anyone in it. And then one day, when I was 19 years old or 20 years old, I see someone on campus, University of Utah. They're recruiting people to come out and sell. And very long story short, jumped in and saw really early success. And I'll never forget, I went on they call them blitz trips, where they take people out for a couple of days and they train them how to do it. And
almost like back-to-back neighborhood.
Yeah, you're just limping all day. And I went on that first blitz trip and I sold 2 accounts, which was worth at the time, $800
in
commissions. And I remember leaving that blitz trip and I was like, I just made $800, which would take me like 12 days in my hourly job. And I just made it in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my first paradigm shift happened. I'm like, oh, I'm actually fully in control of how much money I make.
What was the internal feeling, right? Because for a lot of the audience, they might have already cracked their first sale, or they might be thinking about getting into the space. And I love a performance-based vehicle. I think it's the closest thing to business ownership, minus the marketing and the fulfillment, right? And so when you get behind something that you can control your income, there is that light bulb moment that goes off. So what were you kind of saying to yourself outside of, oh my gosh, I can control my income? Like, what was the feeling?
It was excitement. It was like feeling, you talk about breakthroughs in life and your personal development. You have these breakthrough moments. And it was a breakthrough moment. It just felt incredibly empowering, really excited. And then I'll just never forget, I had like this desire, this urge to just go all in. So I got really obsessed with it. I was like reading all the books, watching all the YouTube videos. I remember this was 2010, late 2010. And I remember finding like Grant Cardone on YouTube. And before he was popular, I remember I followed him on Twitter and he had like 300 followers and we followed each other, like way back. And I just got really obsessive, super fixated on sales. So I was listening to books, listening to personal development stuff, and kind of had this all-in mentality because it was the first time in my life where I'm like, oh, I'm actually in the driver's seat of my income.
Before that, were you just kind of thinking, well, I'm going to do the finance thing and just take the traditional path? Like, what was it?
Yeah, I always had like this entrepreneurial desire. So I didn't know if I was going to start a business. I mean, I was going to school for finance. So I remember I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I remember thinking like, well, if I had to learn about money, I think that'd be a good thing to know about, strategy and investing. And so I kind of had this entrepreneur curiosity.
Yeah.
And then sales was actually the thing that like all the dots, like the stars aligned. And I was like, okay, this is a thing. I'm going to go all in on this thing here.
Yeah, something similar happened for me where I went to school for finance at UNC Wilmington in North Carolina. And I was just waiting tables and selling weed and just like goofing off. And I was like, um, thinking to myself, like, either I'm going to go this banker route or this Wall Street route, and I'm really not crazy about either one. I think these guys are kind of goofy that are doing this with the Patagonia vest and stuff. Like, no hate to my finance bros, but I just didn't align with it. It was something about the rigid and regimented pathway that I couldn't stomach it. And I broke into construction sales, and I remember going to my first appointment. We were running a marketing campaign, like some Angie Leads type stuff. So we didn't just do door to door, but it was more like we set the appointment. So I go in and I cracked my first sale, and it was a pretty big one. I think it was like $22,000, and I got 8% of that. So I was like, I just made $2,000 just by meeting this guy, winning him over. We had a great conversation. We're going to fix his whole deck and his roof and everything. I'm just like, this is for me. And I was talking to a really good friend of mine that's a manager in the space, and he has a bunch of sales teams. We were talking about like this nature versus nurture concept, where some people want to say that it's not nature, and I think it can be taught, and it very much can be developed, the skill of sales and charisma and shaking hands and doing the whole thing. But you can't ignore the fact that some people are born to do this, and whenever you find it compels you in that way, right? So did you feel like it came naturally to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I've trained thousands of sales reps.
Yeah.
I've worked with hundreds of people, like on the doors, literally. I coached hundreds of people. And while there is for sure some natural characteristic traits that people have that help them perform, I've also worked with guys who don't have it at all.
Yeah.
But they just put their head down and work, and they study and they master the art of selling and become high performers. And I actually think that in some situations, people that kind of have this natural sales ability, it can hurt them because they rely too much on their characteristic traits rather than actually putting in the work to study,
learning the methodologies.
And a lot of the guys that don't have that put in more effort on their pitch and their presentation and overcoming objections and their closing, and over time end up beating those talented reps because they have more of this mindset to just of all in. And I think in my experience, I've worked with multiple $1 million a year earners from low end to high end, and the number one trait of a peak performer is mindset over skill set, right? I take mindset over skill set all day.
And it sounds like cliche, right? But I know exactly what you mean. And for the audience though, I want to unpack the mindset part, but with the chronological story. So you start selling, you hit your first sale. Give me the short version of your sales career and just kind of walk me through how it went.
Yeah. So, got my first deal and then went out. So the door-to-door product, the way it works is it works seasonal. So you literally move from your town, you go to a random city, you're there from basically the summer months, May to September, and it's all day, every day knocking doors. It's your only focus. It's like it's from sunrise to sunset grinding. And so that first summer I went out, and unfortunately my father passed away that summer. So I didn't get a full season in. So I only worked half a season. Went home around the 4th of July. But in those 7 weeks, I made $50,000 as a 20-year-old. And so I'm like, okay, there's something here. So came home from that, dealt with my family stuff, my dad passing. And along the way, I met really great mentors. And I had one mentor, his name's Casey Baugh, just kind of convinced me and inspired me to go all in on this thing. So then I started recruiting. I started training on leadership. Then I went and recruited a team of guys when I'm 20 years old. And then the next year, went to Houston, Texas for 5 months and made $250,000 as a 20-year-old. And that was when I'm like, okay, this is all in. I'm going to try and, I was thinking about dropping out of school, but I told my dad before he died that I'd finish school. So I finished school and then had kind of this 6-year run at Vivint where I was consistently top rep. Out of 4,000 reps, I was usually ranked in the top 10, number 1 to number 10, and made really great money. And I think in between 21 to 27, 26, 27, I made about $2.5-3 million just in commissions, just knocking doors.
And with this drive that you had to stay up at the top of the leaderboard, right? Like it's easy to hit. Well, it's not easy. You can get number 1, but to stay there for that long is a different conversation.
Different beast.
Right? And I'm sure there's so many things we can go into for how you stayed there. But as far as like internal drivers go, obviously you're dealing with the late passing of your father. What was internally keeping you at the top of the leaderboard? Was it competition versus the other reps? Was it kind of this you versus you thing? Was it like F the world thing? Or was it just like, hey, this is so much money, like I'm going to capitalize? Like,
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything, right? You know, the money was fun and, you know, I blew a lot of it. I was so bad with my money. I was buying stupid cars and sitting front row at the NBA finals and in the Super Bowl and like, you know, I had a good time. It was fun. And however, I realized I was still kind of lacking fulfillment. I was trying to get the sales job to fix an inner problem, right? I was like, oh, if I just finish number
I don't know anything about that.
and yeah, it was a really intense drive. And, you know, my first book that I wrote called Holy Shit, We're Alive, I talk a lot about that for those who want to go deeper on it. But staying on the chronological piece, I realized that, you know, as I was going through Vivint, I ended up becoming the company sales trainer.
Okay.
So my job was actually to train a lot of the sales guys within the company. And so I would fly around to different states weekly and go to the team meetings and pump everyone up and then run the meeting and do the training, and that actually would go out and knock doors with guys.
With that, you became the trainer. So obviously they recruited you to do that or presented it to you, which is interesting because not all the top reps should go and be the trainer. Like, I just broke into management. I've been doing it for about a year now. Managing teams is a whole different thing.
Different skill set.
Being an individual contributor. So why was it that they felt or you felt like training other reps was the right way to go versus just doubling down on just recruiting and being an assassin on the front line?
Yeah.
Because you said you're doing a little bit of both, but
yeah,
obviously that takes some
time. So the shift happened because around the time I was at Vivint, they were going through a transaction. They're getting private equity money. And a major indicator on the valuation of a company is your attrition rate, meaning what % of your customers fall off, stop paying their bill, right? And so the industry average in alarms is if I go out and sell 200 accounts, they basically factor into plan on about 10% attriting. So 6 to 9 months later, customers just stop paying their bill, right? So there's about a 10% margin in there for error. Vivint did an assessment on my personal accounts and my region accounts, and my team's attrition rate was 1%. You know, we sold really
10 times better than the
so we sold
average.
Really high quality accounts. You know, I really focused on the training to sell with high levels of integrity, right? To actually go through the sales process, to solve problems, to not be in the gray area. And because we sold at such a high level, our accounts were really clean. And so Vivint saw that and was like, oh, if we could get our whole company to sell with this quality of salesmanship, then our attrition rates will go down, which will increase the valuation of the company.
So obviously I'm catching a lot of what you're saying, but for the person that's watching, they might think that, for the lay person, they might think, oh, you're selling alarms, you're just ripping people off, going to the door, trying to get as much. And, you know, solar's got its own, representation and reputation. When you say that selling with integrity piece, like, what was that tactically? Obviously it's building the relationship with the client and the homeowner, but what was it for you that you weren't skipping and that you were making sure to do?
Yeah, it was just being really straightforward in your transaction. You know, the reality is sales is problem solving, right? It's all it is it's people have a pain point and can you solve that pain point? And so in door to door in any sales industry, everyone kind of has an opportunity to maybe withhold information or not share all the details of the agreement or, you know, the credit inquiry or whatnot.
So a hairy deal.
Yeah, I think in any industry, there's an opportunity to be hairy. And I just train my guys that, like, hey, we don't do that. You know, because in my experience, the more ethical you can sell, the more quality accounts you can sell, you're going to have a happy customer. And if you have happy customers, right, you're going to feel good inside, which is going to affect the way you knock and perform. And, you know, you're more likely to get referrals. And so I just saw that in the industry that the reps in other kind of regions who weren't selling in high integrity, the karma just always came back to bite them.
Do you think that, I always try to assume ignorance instead of malice, right? Like, people just don't know any better. That's usually my go-to. But when it comes to telling the truth, like, I'm big on conviction-based sales. Like, as I'm kind of building my methodology, it's something like that. Like, I just want to believe in the product so much that I can just stomp the other person with conviction. I don't have the best reframes. I don't have the best, objection handling. but I know how to win someone over if I believe in the product or service, right? And whenever you're seeing people not tell the truth, like I think a lot of the car salesmen and the shiesty types, when you think of like the slick back guy who's, you know, effing people over, like what percentage of people now that you've trained so many reps and you've been in this industry for so long, like what percentage of people do you actually think it is? Because it's got to be greater than zero, right? Like people that are kind of out for themselves, maybe they're a psychopath and they just got into sales and that was the thing. But like, I mean, how many people would you say that you come across that are like, oh yeah, this guy doesn't have good intentions?
Yeah, I don't know if I can put a number on it, but you know, in a door-to-door, 100% commission-based industry, you know, statistically, you're just going to have bad eggs, right?
Yeah.
And then those, you know, that percentage of people kind of gives a bad rap to everyone. And so,
Unfortunately,
you know, and that's just the reality of the situation. And so I was doing my best to mitigate that. And so focused selling really high quality accounts, and being incredibly transparent and just providing great, exceptional service with the product. And, you know, part of the service is the way I show up on your doorstep, right? I want to give my customer service with who I am and being sharp and knowing knowledge and understanding my industry and understanding my product and understanding the contracts. And it was my responsibility to know all that too. So I could provide exceptional service to my customers. In my experience, you know, if the more value you provide to someone, you know, the higher probably you're going to get a deal, and dollars follow value. And so I was really focused on, in my sales training, on value prop, right? How can I provide more value than any other door-to-door rep in the industry? How can I provide more value than any other product? And that's going to be in the way I show up, in my presence, in my countenance, in my demeanor, in my sales training. And I'm just a, you know, big believer that a lot of times in sales, when I train guys, the question I'm always asking them isn't how do I become a better salesman? The question you should be asking is how do I provide more value than any other person who's ever going to knock on this person's door?
that's a great framework. And I think whenever there's this thing going on in like, at least in the like high ticket info space that I'm in, I don't know if it's the same way in door to door, but a lot of people underestimate like how much goes into this personal development and actually becoming that type of rep that shows up at the door with the best service, being of the most use, providing the most value. A lot of people just think they can walk in and say the word tracks and it'll land, right? But like for anybody who thinks it's going to be easy, it's really not.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a good personal development vehicle, and we can dive into that on how it shapes you.
I can jump into that too, because one thing that I think is, you know, the message I really want to the point I want to get across today is I had another paradigm shifting moment. I was doing a sales training for a team in Springfield, Missouri, right? And, you know, out in the middle of nowhere,
Big cities,
blue collar, you know, middle America. And I went to go knock with this rep who was normally a very high performer. And for whatever reason, he was just in a sales slump and he just couldn't figure it out. And he was frustrated and his manager was overwhelmed. And so they called me out. I flew out there, did a training with them. And I'll never forget, I go out on the doors to knock with this kid one day. And as we're driving out to area, I tell him like, hey, let me just shadow you for a little bit. Don't tell me what you think's going wrong. I'll take a little voice recording on my iPhone and then we'll kind of reassess. And so we walk up to the store and this kid knocks on the door, guy answers, and he gives like the most excellent door approach. He breaks preoccupation, right? Builds value, has a little bit of a pullback, you know, come to transition inside the house. And when it came time to transition, it was like I watched someone like flip the off switch on this kid. His energy completely changes. His voice quality dips. His shoulders dip. You can see like, it was almost like they sucked the confidence right out of him. And so we walk away from that house. We don't get it. And I'm like, what was that? And so we get in the car and I was like, bro, like you're actually doing really good. And then you totally fumbled. Like, what was going on there? Like, what's going on? And he was like, I don't know. It's like, I can't get inside any houses. I can't seem to concentrate. It's like this thing that's been happening. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just can't seem to focus. And I was like, what do you mean you can't seem to focus? And he goes, well, can I be transparent with you? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you know, I came out of the summer here to sell. Me and my fiance were getting ready for our wedding. You know, a couple of weeks ago, she called the wedding off and I just haven't been able to focus. And I have this aha moment. I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid does not have a sales problem. He knows scripts. He knows how to overcome objections. He knows how to close. He has a personal problem that's blocking his ability to perform. And so I like almost like have this full review of all of the guys I've trained, all of the teams I've worked with. And I'm like, oh, this is true for every single person I've trained, is that you do not have a sales problem. You have a mindset problem, self-limiting belief problem, a personal issue that's blocking or distracting you, your focus from performance.
Yeah.
And that's when my career changed.
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight that over the last couple of years for me, I've done, several $1 million in revenue. And as an individual contributor, I was always the top rep on the team and had a really high close rate.
Yeah.
And I would do these one-on-ones with my founder, who was playing the role of the sales manager and a really great mentor to me. And a lot of times on the one-on-one, he would say, how are you feeling 1 to 10? And if my numbers ever dipped, it really wasn't because of my ability. It was just some personal development thing. Maybe I wasn't sleeping on time, or maybe it was something like a breakup or something. And so I was talking to one of my sales reps just the other day, and he's our top performer by a mile, and he just couldn't get out of this funk. And come to find out, he's got this problem with mom at home and all this stuff. And I think as a manager, the idea is you can't treat reps like a number on a spreadsheet, right? Like if you go and actually meet them and understand who they are and what's going on in their life, that's going to add so much for them wanting to work with you and aligning those incentives, aligning those goals. But some people just have something going on, and it needs to be managed. And it's like, hey man, we could do all the objection training in the world, but unless we kind of like talk about this marriage thing, like none of that actually matters.
Yeah, it's all about mastering the inner game. And so, I had this aha moment, and then I coupled it with this other concept. And, when's the best time to sell an account?
Say one more time.
When's the best time to sell?
Whenever you're feeling hot.
Exactly. Right after you sold one.
Right after you sold one, yeah.
You're feeling hot, right? You're feeling hot. And so I took this concept of like, okay, what would my day look like if I went out and worked and I had this feeling that I had just sold a couple?
Yep.
And I had that all day. I would crush it, right? My door approach doesn't change. My scripts doesn't change. My objection training doesn't change. What changed was my inner state. So I take these two concepts. I'm like, I don't have a sales problem. I have a personal problem. Right? What if I could master my inner world? And what if I could get into this peak state all day? If I combine those two, it's rocket ship in performance. And so after being at Vivint for a couple of years, I finally, in 2021, broke off and launched my own consulting firm, Alchemy Sales Coaching. And then I've been running that. I've been the CEO of that for a couple of years now. And the whole premise of Alchemy Sales Coaching is that concept of we're going to master our inner world. We're going to take care of our self-limiting beliefs. We're going to take care of the interpersonal problems we have and work on the inner game. And we're going to couple that with intentionality of getting into a peak state all the time. And, since I started Alchemy in 2021, it's led me down this crazy road where now I'm, speaking on stages and got hundreds of members. I've trained thousands of people across the country. And the whole concept, because I think it really rings true for a lot of people, is like, one thing that is cool about a lot of these sales organizations is that a lot of these companies give great sales content. They teach you the pitch. They teach you how to overcome objections.
They've got it.
Yeah, they've got a lot of the stuff. And the problem isn't more tactical training. The problem is personal development training.
Yep.
And so that's my mission here with Alchemy, is to bring a platform and a community of people who are inspired to be the best versions of themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially.
Yeah, I think one of the guys who walked in before we started the conversation, Evan, I have been coaching him, and he's a really awesome, very skilled sales professional, really high integrity, all the things. And I helped him double his commission, maybe a little bit more than double his commission. We didn't do any sales training at all. All I did was call out his limiting beliefs that he kept casting upon himself with his words, like, oh, I could never hit X, or oh, I can't do this. And it was just like, hey, man, like, that we can go a lot further. And we went through 4 or 5 exercises of that, right? Just like breaking through these walls. And I run a lot of marathons and stuff. And that is the breaking of the limiting beliefs. That was like my Instagram tagline for a long time, like breaker of limiting beliefs. And so I find that is more needed than the tactics and the word tracks. I'm interested though, what made you choose the word alchemy?
Yeah. Alchemy to me is the process of human transformation and fulfillment, right? And I look back at my sales career when I was the top guy, I was the number one rep. I was crushing it. I had no fulfillment. I was lacking fulfillment. That was the piece I was seeking. And I needed to go through a transformation. So in 2017, I actually took 2 years off and did a little mini sabbatical and went down the spirituality path and did a lot of plant medicine with ayahuasca and went to Bali and did the meditation and the retreats. And I remember when I kind of left this very toxic, masculine, intense industry and then went into kind of the softer side to kind of get clear on my inner state. I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, there's so many guys I work with who need this help, who need to work on their inner experience, who need to work on their self-limiting beliefs, who need to work on their quote unquote traumas, their overwhelming experiences. And I'm like, how can I bring, some of these core concepts back to an industry to kind of balance it out? And alchemy just felt like a great word because it was kind of this, how do you transform and transmute some of these behaviors?
The reason I asked is because I read the book The Alchemist a lot.
Right. I mean, that book was a big part of my inspiration for my company for sure.
Yeah, I've got this tattoo on my chest, Maktu, that means it is written, and it was a very, very profound and transformational book for me, for sure. Nice. And it's a great tale. So you're doing this, you have this paradigm shift, you notice that's the inner game, then you go and break off and do the consulting. When you say getting into that state as if you just sold one, my mind just goes to whenever I would play. I have a few calls in my call recording vault that I listened to that I really changed the person's life. They broke down into tears. I know that they succeeded a few months later, so I've got the documentation. I'm just thinking, training my mind to serve the next person at the highest level. What is it practically, if you could give the audience some tactical stuff that you do to get that inner state up to where you're feeling that way?
Yeah, so peak state, there's a couple of angles on this thing. The foundation of it is diet, sleep, exercise, right? If you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, right? You're not working out, it's going to be really hard to get into a peak state, right? It's just going to, it's going to be like an uphill battle. So I always focus on the physical piece, right? Are you sleeping well? Are you eating clean? Are you exercising? If you are, right, now your entry point into peak state is going to be really a lot easier. The next thing is you've got to change what you're focusing on, right? The quality of our life is directly correlated to the emotions we feel the most. So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling panicked, if you're feeling insecure, that's going to dictate the quality of your life. So how do you change your emotions? First thing is you got to change what you focus on. So here's a couple of questions you can ask, right? Do you normally focus on what you have or what you don't have?
Oof.
Right?
Okay.
Do you focus on what's going wrong in your life or do you focus on what's going well? Right? What you don't have and what's not going well will always be available for the rest of your life. There will always be something you don't have and there will always be something that's not quite working well. So first step is focus on, what do I have right now? Getting into a state of gratitude, right? What is working really well? What part of your life is actually working really, really well, right? Do you tend to focus on what you can control or what you can't control? Right? What's actually in my control right now? The way I sleep, when I wake up, my study habits, my attitude, my effort, right? And then do you tend to put your attention and concentration on the past, the future, or the present? So if you catch yourself feeling sad, low energy, and depressed, you're in the past. If you tend to be tight, tense, overwhelmed,
anxious,
you're in the future, right? When you're in the present, you're calm, you're centered, you're relaxed, right? So first question, what am I focusing on? Shift it to what you have, what's going well, what's in my control, right? And being present. Second question is, what am I making this to mean, right?
What am I making this to mean?
Yep. So the meaning you give something is going to create an emotion. So what you do is you say, what's your number one, so I'll ask right here, what's the number one problem in your life right now?
For me?
Yep.
Probably my sleep schedule.
Cool. My sleep schedule, right? So when you create, my sleep schedule is a problem, right? That's going to create an emotion of frustration, overwhelm, stress, right? So all you do is you take the word problem and you're going to change it to the word opportunity.
Oh, I love that, man.
Right. So what's your opportunity right now with your sleep schedule?
So to make it better so that I can perform at a higher level.
Yeah. Cool. So now I've got this opportunity to get better, get my sleep schedule locked in, right? I'm going to be a better performer, and you can see how the energy is going to shift.
Yeah. I think it's like you have a choice, right? And at the end of an objection handling, it might be, whether you look for reasons to do this or not, you're going to be correct either way, right? And it's the same thing. Like, we give all these great recommendations as a sales rep to our clients, right? But we can't sell ourselves on that. And I think with getting into gratitude, I have a pretty good muscle when it comes to shifting my state like that. A lot of people are missing that though. And what I tend to notice is that it's like you said, it's the language piece. It is the words that you're using, and that dictates where it goes.
Yeah.
And like I had a guy who messaged me, and he just texted me something like he's trying to hit his end of the month projections, and he's trying to do this 4-day sprint, and he's like, everything's falling apart. I'm like, first of all, how about we just pause and just delete that phrase from our vocabulary, right? Everything's coming together. And it's equally, you just
I would push it a little bit more, though. I would say, rather than doing kind of this like, oh, everything's working out in my favor.
Sure.
Be more specific. Hey, like, what actually in your life right now is working? Right? Not this like fake mantra.
Ooh, yeah, fair.
Like be specific. I would go to this like, hey, specifically what in your life is actually going well right now? Right? Tell me specific things that are going well. Tell me specific things that you actually have right now. Right? What is in your control? Right? And getting in the present moment, right? So again, the next question again was change the meaning you give it. So what's the opportunity with this right now? And then the last piece is really important. The third question is, what am I going to do today? Not how do I solve the whole problem? Not how do I save the world over the next 6 months? Not how do I make everything happen perfectly, right? Just today, what's the best thing you can do? So again, you get into a positive, grateful, present state. Okay, what's the opportunity in this? Okay, this is going to be empowering. Now, just today, what's something you can do?
It's interesting when we talk about the problem versus opportunity thing, right? Like, a lot of people think problems are a bad thing.
Yeah.
But problems are opportunities. Yeah. And all we have is time and attention. And in business, the whole purpose of a business is to solve a problem, right? And so I like to think, I try to remind my guys, there was some stuff that came up, refund comes through or client's mad. It's like, perfect. This is great. This is a great opportunity for us to get feedback and learn and improve. And so whenever we have a problem that gets presented to us, we see it as an opportunity for growth, right? And whenever you were going through this, Bali transformation, you're doing all this stuff, did you find that inner voice was like 10 times louder, that, you should be doing better, hard on yourself, that toxic kind of masculine voice? Like, was that present for you and you had to unwind it? Or do you feel like you did a decent job?
I don't think that you can change the voice. What you can do, though, is you can change your relationship to it. And that's the difference, right? That voice, I call it, Phil Stutz, who is a great author, calls it Part X.
Part X?
Part X, which is the voice in your head that's always going to be limiting. It's just the ego is the voice. And the whole purpose of this is, even tying this back into meditation. I teach meditation here and there, but I'm not a certified meditation teacher by any means. But a lot of times our guys will come and be like, hey, I can't meditate. I'm like, what do you mean you can't meditate? It's like, well, I can't quiet my mind. I'm like, no one can quiet their mind. It's not the goal is to quiet your mind. It's to change your relationship to the voice, right? Some of the best advice I ever got from one of my first coaches, this is 15 years ago. She told me, she goes, Doug, don't believe everything you think. You're not your thoughts.
Yeah.
You're the one who observes them. And so
I think we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught about that.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And so these thoughts, I still have these thoughts too, but I don't cling to them. Right. A thought will come in of, you're not good enough, this isn't going to work. And I just say to myself, that's an interesting thought. And then I just shrug it off. Right. And I keep going. When we get in trouble is when we latch onto it. Ruminate. Right? What does this mean? And we ruminate, right? So I'll share this one other tool. This is the main concept in my next book, right? My next book, I Can Handle This, will be out late Q1, early Q2 of 2026. And this tool has been really, really helpful for me. So this is what I call inner alchemy. So imagine something happens. You closed a huge deal worth tens of thousands of commission, and then you get a call that the customer cancels the deal, right? In that moment, what emotions might be present?
Frustration, anger, probably, just sadness, like just a wash of cortisol. I could imagine.
Fear, anxiety, right? So let's say you're feeling a lot of fear, in your life. So here's the tool. When you feel overwhelmed by emotional discomfort, 3-step tool. It's very helpful. Step 1, unclench all the tension in your body. So right now, watch this. Imagine that there is a metal pole in the center of your chest. Okay? Relax your grip. Take your hand off of it. You take your hand off of it, right? That's step 1, is just physical relaxation. Step 2 is welcome the fear in, but don't touch it. Sit next to it. Give it space internally, but don't get involved in it. Don't react to it. Don't push it away. Don't distract yourself from it. Don't let it drive. Don't let it pull you in. Just sit next to it, but don't touch it. Another phrase that I use is, I'll talk to my emotions. Fear, you make sense. It makes sense why you're here. It's lots of big deal.
Yeah.
You make sense. I'm not going to run away from you. I'm not going to run from you, right?
You'd be crazy to not be a little bit afraid.
Yeah. Cool. Makes sense why fear's here. But I'm the driver. I'm not letting fear drive. I'm gonna sit next to it. So I'm gonna welcome it in, but don't touch it. And then the third step,
Passenger seat.
Third step is you repeat in your head the mantra, I can handle this. I can handle this. And every time I say it, I relax 100% more. I can handle this. I can handle this. I can handle this. Right?
I can feel it happening right now.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think of the meme where it's like this guy sitting it's like a cartoon. It's like this guy sitting at a bar, and then there's like this like black abyss figure, and it's like depression. And it's like, hey, old friend.
Yeah.
And he sits at the bar and he's like, here, you want a drink? It's like, what's up, man?
I mean, on that note, this is the number one skill set any sales rep can learn, and this is any human being. The number one skill set a human being can learn is to increase their inner capacity to feel unpleasant emotions. Right?
Yep.
I have the capacity and willingness, and the keyword is willingness. I'm willing to feel stress, anxiety, embarrassment, shame, guilt, frustration. I'm not searching for it.
Yeah.
But when it comes, I work with it, right? If you can increase your inner capacity to handle discomfort, to feel unpleasant, your whole life will change. You're not scared of rejection. You're not scared of fear. It's not going to cause you to freeze. It's not going to cause you to be reactive. You're also not going to fall into distractive behaviors such as social media, Netflix, nicotine, alcohol, porn, right? I'm willing to feel it all. And what happens is when you increase your inner capacity to handle discomfort, nothing can touch you. It's like I can be with rejection, I can be with sadness, I can be with fear, and I can stay steady, grounded, centered in the face of all of it. And that skill, I'm being very direct here, that skill is the number one skill that the most successful people I've ever worked with all have in common.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm not going to say I've had it the hardest or anything, but I've been through several circumstances where it would be reasonable to crash out or to, just have a fit, right? And I think Layla Hermosi said this in a clip one time that I saw, that resilience is defined by the ability or the speed at which you get back to baseline when something knocks you down, right? It's like zip and we're back. And I think that is so true because and Patrick Bet-David has this graph where he talks about like, if you have like 90% good days, you're going to beat the guy who has a few phenomenal days, but then he has this spike of state, right? And so if you just get your at-bats and you're just showing up every single day and you can move forward despite those emotions that come up and you can increase that capacity, you're going to be lethal, man.
Yeah.
If you can move forward despite the emotions, it's kind of like fuck your emotions, but in a more productive
it's for
language.
Me, the way I look at it, it's working with the emotion.
Yep.
I'm not pushing it away. I'm not running from it. I'm not distracting. I'm not pushing it down, right? Because if you push it down for too long, it's going to boom, right?
Sure.
So it's working with it. I'm teammates with it because emotions are going to come and go.
Yeah.
Right. Just like the weather, it comes and it goes. Nothing's permanent. And so the state that I try and get to is a state of what I call triple C. That's what I want it. That's how I want to engage in everything. What's triple C? I'm calm in my body. I'm just relaxed. I'm confident in myself. Not maybe the situation, but I'm confident in my ability to navigate it. And I'm clear in my mind. If I'm clear-minded, confident in myself, and calm in my body, I can handle any situation.
What do you have people that resist this and they're kind of like, this is woo-woo, this is bullshit? Like, because for me, this stuff matters. And this is what gets me out of bed. And I'm very fascinated and I feel like I'm a student of the game and I'm always trying to get that next toolkit or that next acronym or that next psychology piece. But do you find that when you're training all these reps, like some people are like, dude, this is bullshit. Like, it's just about the skills.
Rarely, right? Very rarely. And one thing that I would say is just like, young reps think this, right? Yeah. It's funny. The guys who work with me are mostly CEOs and leaders.
Got it.
Like they're like, Senior. Okay, I've gone through enough shit now. I need help navigating that.
Yeah.
I got, great.
Give me the 3C framework.
Got a great bank account. Still not happy. I'm like, cool. Now we know the next piece is the inner game. So, but I would say it's received very well, because I think at the end of the day, like, would you rather feel stressed and anxious and overwhelmed, or would you rather feel cool, confident, and clear?
Yeah.
Quality of your life is, again, directly correlated to the emotions you feel the most. And so there's tools and ways of being to change your emotional state.
Mm-hmm. When you're doing this practically for you, or you're helping your students or clients implement this, is it writing it? Is it sitting and doing a little bit of meditation with it? Like, what is it for you that you use to practice this? Like, what is it? How does it appear?
Yeah, so I've got a lot of different tactics. I journal probably 2 times a week, nothing crazy. And it's like really just quick check-ins. But for me, it's goes back again at the basics. Diet, sleep, exercise will always be the foundation of all of it, right? On top of that, Breathwork, Othership, shout out Othership. It's a Breathwork app. That always gets me into a peak state. And then it's just always trying to change what I'm focusing on.
Yeah.
Energy goes where focus flows, right? So, focus goes where energy flows. And so, again, what am I focusing on? What do I have? What I don't have? What's going right in my life? What's in my control? Right? Am I in the present moment? Again, what am I making this to mean? What's the opportunity in this? And then what can I do just for today? Right? Mm-hmm. That's going to change your emotional state pretty quickly.
So with where you're at with your business, what are you looking forward to? What's next?
Yeah.
What is your vision board? Like, what are you searching for? Like, if we could paint the next 612 or beyond that, like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, the Alchemy community is really special. We've had hundreds of people come through the program. And it's just focused on creating a community of other inspired individuals who are focused on overall well-being, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And so the way my program works is I have kind of 2 packages, where you have the community package where you can come in, be a part of the community, get in the group chat. I do a live training, a 90-minute training every other week. So there's a live Zoom call. I have Alchemy University, where I train all of this in depth. Hundreds of hours of trainings with multiple guest speakers. So you get access to the Alchemy University platform. I do an in-person event once a year. It's a big conference that I do in Utah in the winter. Hundreds of people. This year's theme is going to be wealth management. So we actually bring up a lot of investing strategies in there as well. And then I have another package where there's one-on-one opportunities. So you can actually work with me one-on-one, where I actually will break down your entire psyche on that piece and get you into a more of a peak state, elevated state. And so I work with people in all industries, right? It's not just door to door, it's anyone kind of in sales. And so it's been really fulfilling from my end to take someone who, might be pretty good performer, but is lacking that inner fulfillment, and then to have them make that shift. And a natural byproduct of getting your inner state aligned is increased performance. And so in my experience, it's the missing piece a lot of guys are missing to kind of get to that next level.
100%, man. Well, it sounds like you're doing a bunch of awesome work, man. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I wish we had more time. We can definitely run it back. What would you leave to the audience? Just anything, parting statements, or where can they find you? Anything to give them as like a final couple takeaways?
Yeah, if you have any more questions on the stuff, I know this resonates with a lot of people. I'm most active on Instagram at Doug_Cartwright, or you can check out our website, alchemysalescoaching.com, where we have a bunch of resources on there for you as well. So
sick. Well, dude, it's been a pleasure, man. Excited to grow and to get to know you even further.
Appreciate it.
Cool.